Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is navigating the 7 stages of marriage and their usefulness to you right now.
I can't wait to hear which stage that you think you're in. Both you, Aaron, and the listener.
Oh, okay.
I want to know which stage you think we're in. But also, as the listener, send us a message on Instagram or respond to our newsletter. We love learning those things about you and what you take away from the podcast.
Now, to start this off, The 7 Stages of Marriage comes from a book published in 2006 by a marriage therapist, Rita DeMaria, and a co-author, Sari Harar. And you've heard us talk about seasons of marriage, and that we feel strongly that marriage is about this positive progression, but the understanding that, like a stock market volatility over time, there's going to be course corrections. Okay, so if you look at the trend, you want that to be upward, and these seasons can be times where you have more external stresses. You may have more things that are like your conflict cycle coming up between the two of you. So you go through more challenging times. And for us, that's going to repeat itself, based on external stresses, based on various things. And so we want to frame that inside of these 7 stages that have been outlined. Now, we would say, and are going to say in this podcast, that we don't think that every couple will go through every stage, and not necessarily in this order.
Or to the same degree, too.
Yeah, definitely. And so, but we do want you to take away these 7 stages so that you can have the right expectation of what a marriage is going to go through. And certainly that you can have a realization. To me, that's funny because that's one of the names of the stages, but you don't know that yet. And that you have a sense that, okay, this isn't something that is bad or means something about our marriage or relationship right now, but we were probably going to go through something like this anyway, because, again, all marriages do go through stages, and these stages, again, maybe not this order and maybe not every single one.
I think couples can feel lost as if they don't have a map sometimes, right? Like they're trying to sail somewhere, but they can't see their way. They get frustrated. This isn't fun because you don't know not only where you are now, but also what could be next and the next. And I said this to someone on the phone, one of our clients, just touching base Friday. And they're in a hard moment, for different reasons I won't get into. And I said, I know it feels really hard right now. And that's when the mind can really catastrophize things, feel very discouraged, and in a sense, spiral down worse. But I said, if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, like of being together for decades, hopefully, then this will be a small blip in the broad scheme of things. And we just want to remind you of that because that's how it feels to all of us. But I really think when you and I are going through something, I do zoom out and I say, you know what? We really do plan on being together the rest of our lives. Like we are doing everything that we can to stay united, stay strong, keep the love alive within our partnership so that we can grow older together. And I just know that we'll look back and think, wow, look at everything we navigated. Some of it was harder, some of it was more fun, but we became better and stronger together because we also had a map. We also could put things into perspective.
Yeah, really great point. So we're going to go into the 7 stages now. And for those of you that have been listening for a while, I do want to note, let's keep in mind the podcast episode about the triangle of love theory. If you haven't listened to that, definitely go back and listen to that. And so the premise being that love is not just this conceptual thing, but there's another theory out there that says love is this mix between passion, commitment, and closeness. And the mix of those determine the types of relationships you have. And now for a relationship like a marriage, you want to be moving and coming back to the place of we renamed the stage to complete love, which is where you have the passion, closeness, and commitment all together. Sometimes in different seasons, you feel like you lose one of them. So from that background, now I want to go into the first stage of marriage here, being passion.
Which we all know, it's like the honeymoon stage, right? Every single couple talks about this. I'll never forget someone in college that I went on like one date with. And for some reason, we were talking about like the idea of marriage, not with each other, just in general. And he really kind of had a pessimistic view in that it's all doom and gloom after the honeymoon stage ends. And for some reason, I'll never forget that. But in a sense, naturally, that honeymoon stage, this passion stage, as they call this, it does kind of end, you could say, or evolve, really. It's natural that when we meet together, it is kind of this fireworks because it's new. It's exciting.
So much unknown, too.
So much
like,
unknown.
I don't know. I can make a wrong move, right? It's like I can try to initiate something with you, and it could be too soon for you, and then you reject me, and then I question the relationship. Did I mess it up?
Are we going to kiss tonight? Is he going to grab my hand? Oh, wait, is he going to call me? Is he going to ask me to do something? And it's an exciting stage.
Yeah, I think not only exploring the unknown, but I think there's a level of like possible consequence that when you get into, they usually say about year 2, but you get into year 2, 3, and beyond, that there is a certain level of, you're not going to be as rejected if you make some kind of initiation. But there's also going to be that, as we go through these stages, you fall into a type of navigating normalcy of life that's always going to happen in any relationship. Yeah. And that's kind of what has passion feel like it goes away. But again, to your point, it's like there's a difference to probably the sexual, the chemical, the attraction drive early in this stage that probably is specific to this stage that you have to be more intentional about trying to recreate later on.
Yesterday was Mother's Day, and I was doing a lot of reflection, and I was thinking about how you see me now, and a question came to my mind, which I know the answer to, but I still ask, are you still attracted to me? Because sometimes I look haggard. Let's just be real. Like Sky has...
Oh, let me say to yourself, and I'm not just saying that nicely, but haggard. It's like, you're never going to look haggard. I just want to put that out there, but I do personally get what you mean, obviously.
Like, there are mornings where I'm like in my pajamas still for hours. Sky has put her mouth, like she likes to use my pants to clean her face. I try to clean her face with a rag, and I get sweaty because I'm chasing her. We go outside, we play. My hair's in a bun. I'm trying to keep it straight. So anyway, I know.
I will say, and you got some older clothes that could be circulated out. I need to get some new pajamas. For sure.
Okay, so that's a gift.
Those are still around, yeah.
Get me a gift of some new pajamas. But I think back to when we met, and it's like I was always looking cute, Not only for the gym was my hair still looking good, and I dressed nicely, and we were going on dates, and it was exciting. And the thing is, I appreciate all the seasons we've been through. Like, I appreciate that we saw that in each other, but it's also different now, and I don't expect it to be like it was. And that's something I say, especially to women. I mean, it can apply to men as well, but I'll say to women, like, in a sense, we have to evolve our expectation, not to say we can't still have passion in our lives at all. Like, absolutely, that still exists, but it just changes.
Yeah, I want to come back to that in a later stage. So let's move to the second one, because I think this is one of the best transitions of this whole 7 stages. So you go from passion and move to the stage of realization. And I do feel like this is one of the key linear processes or transitions to a stage. So realization is the recognition that there are differences.
We're not perfect.
That you have personality differences that stand out.
Habits,
preferences. That there are certain needs that are different. That your partner isn't like you. So on the personality trait front, there's going to be things like introversion, extroversion. But for most couples, that dimension isn't very far off, right? Because I think we've dispelled this myth, right? Opposites don't attract. It's just not. In social psychology, it's just not true. Similarity is what attracts. Like, you're just not with a group of people because they're way different than you. You're with groups of people, and you have social group membership because of similarities. So you're attracted to the similarities, even in a partner, and then you want a level of difference, polarity between the two of you, but in general, it's your similarity. So you get to realization where the differences do start to come to light. So introversion, extroversion could be one of them. Certainly, I would say on the organizational front. So whether that's like conscientiousness and structure and follow through and cleanliness and possible OCD, which is a
What
little
you
bit like
have.
me too. Like I like things in place. I like things, in a certain way. So that's one of the things that can be different.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to when we realized we had these differences, because what happens, through the transition from passion and the honeymoon stage to realization is you start to get more comfortable. And again, that's natural to a degree. That's where we have to be aware that we're not getting too comfortable. So if you start to spend more time together, long weekends, maybe you move in together, and one or both of you just starts to kind of take your gas off or your foot off the gas and just not help out as much around the house, or to start to take them for granted a little bit, or you just start to nitpick. That's where we can have this imbalance of negative to positive, and then feel like you're frustrated with the differences, not as much appreciating your differences and talking through them.
And I would say one of the big changes from generation, like kind of our generation and now younger ones, to probably like our parents, there's been a big change in how early a couple cohabitates. And there's a lot of science. There's studies right now that are showing even beyond that, couples are more likely to have long-term cohabitation and not even move towards marriage. So like the marriage rate right now is down, certainly over the last 20 years. It's not the lowest. It was the lowest during COVID. But that was even actually a part of like cohabitation extending and marriage rates going down. And the realization, I would say, that can quicken with cohabitation. So in the past, when like our parents would court, and then you'd have the passion, you'd build the closeness and the commitment, and then you move in together. A lot of couples right now, you have the passion, then you move in together, and then you build the closeness and the commitment.
It's all mixed together.
And then you determine like, oh, it's not. Well, we can just stop living together. So the realization, I think, has been, again, moved up because of how early people are cohabitating. And I'd like to just move us into the third stage, because this is where we see the possibility, based on your own tools, your communication, your proactive assertiveness, with the right tools, the level that you get into this next stage is going to vary. So the third stage is called rebellion. And rebellion is where these differences now have kind of solidified themselves into where your level of emotion, your level of pushing against your own needs not getting met, maybe you become a little more frustrated.
Resentful even.
Possible resentful. And this is where we say this is a big difference in a stage couple will go through or will have to go through, or based on your level of awareness and skills, might not have to really go through.
To explain what he means a little bit, if you two are focusing on how well you communicate, you're talking through your differences. If you do argue, you repair quickly, just like we talk about and have so many resources for. The rebellion could be much less intense. Because you're balancing flexibility with also being assertive about what you need. And that's a key trait. We can notice couples who they have the honeymoon experience, they have the beautiful wedding, they have the realizations of their differences, but the rebellion stage where they almost feel, and it can happen whether they do this at year 2, 3, 4, beyond, it's like, are we going to make it past this? And a key difference I notice, especially in people's personality, is how pleasing they can be and how flexible. Right? If I'm going to be stubborn, I'm going to stay like digging my heels in. No, I have to spend, this much time with my friends, and because this is where you can have these bigger differences. Time with friends, wanting to travel, wanting to work on your careers. No, I want to have kids. No, I want to spend more time together, right? Like there can be these bigger kind of value conflicts, and we have to be able to be flexible while also still honoring ourselves. And so this really is a time when you need to have really great communication skills, really great conflict skills. I mean, I think about the couples who maybe met with us in a sense, quote unquote, too late. Like they went through the stage for too long, didn't seek support. So heads up, guys, like if you're noticing this, this is when you want to get support from someone or gain resources, start to learn, because this is when you can do a lot of damage, I think. And you can have each other lose a sense of security, trust, relying on each other, partnership. Like, are we really in this together?
And if we look at some of the studies, we could ascertain that the time frame on this would be around 7 to 10 years. It has been shown that marriages are the hardest at this year mark. And one of the main drivers would be it's when you have kids. And then you go through the early stages of infancy and growth. And we know that, toddlerhood. We know that typically couples fall into more of a traditional role sense. And that's obvious, right? It's like biologically, the mothers are there to nurture and the infant is reliant on the mother more early on. But this can cause issues if you're not great at communicating your needs and or potential conflicts as you go through. You can start to create distance. Then the mothers feel more burdened that all like the household things are on them, and you can get a separation to the traditional men being the breadwinner and going off to work. And this is just on average. It's not everyone. And if you're not communicating about that, you can see how this rebellion stage is going to really start to create an internal resistance to, I don't feel free. I feel limited. I feel constrained. My partner is telling me that they need all this stuff from me. It's like, this isn't what I want. And if you're not communicating through that, which can be some hard conversations, then you can see how this rebellion stage is really going to be a challenging stage.
I think this is too at the peak of when we kind of need to start thinking as a we. And that doesn't mean we lose our individuality. You guys have heard us talk about how having a really healthy interdependent relationship is when there is a healthy balance between individuality, who I am as a person, but also our relationship and what we need from each other to really support each other in doing life together.
Now, this is a great transition. So let me just pause you. You go into this next one. I think that's the mentality change needed to get into the fourth stage, which is called cooperation. And it's you managing all of life's demands together better. Now, I do want to just segment. It's less about the emotional connection. So we'll come right back to, you really need to focus on maintaining the closeness part of the triangle of love. But cooperation is not so much about the emotional connection from this standpoint as it is, we went through rebellion. We need to have that we mentality. We need to look at marital equity and how do we manage all these life's demands together.
I would actually kind of challenge a little bit of what you said, if that's okay.
I was just presenting the stage itself.
Yes.
So you're not challenging me,
okay,
I would
sure.
say. But yes, please feel free to elaborate on how do you think this cooperation stage can be approached differently.
Well, absolutely. Like you said, the management of life, which is a part of marriage, right? There is managing the household. Who's going to do what? The quote unquote mundane things. Who's going to pay the bills? Who's doing this for the kids and that? But the emotional side is still very important, maybe even more so to women. Of course, these are some generalizations, right? There's always differences. But I even went to see some girlfriends. We went to brunch last week, and we're all parents to somewhat young kids, all married, also all working or have businesses. And we were feeling some emotion, not in terms of like towards our partners, but in the overwhelm that we can feel from trying to show up great in all these different places. And a sentiment that I heard from everyone there was sometimes we just want and need our partner to like sense what we're feeling, check in on us, remind us everything's going to be okay, and provide that emotional support. Because yeah, we're doing a lot. There's the management, but we also want to feel like, you know what, when we're in this state of overwhelm, it's feeling like a lot. Someone is going to like not just be like, okay, tell me what you want me to do, but actually is going to be like, I know, hon, you're doing so much and it's all going to be okay. What do you need right now? A hug? You want to vent? Do you want me to just listen? So I'm just sharing that
Oh, I
perspective.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that the emotional side of things is absolutely still important as you're cooperating and in this life of where you are focusing on your careers. Maybe you're starting a family. We know not everyone wants to pursue that, but if that's part of your journey, then parenting, of course, it adds complexity to your lives. But regardless, you're doing life together and you want to feel like you are cooperating and there's harmony in that.
I totally agree with you. And I think that's a place where the 7 stages themselves could be updated a little bit because it's looking more at lifespan as far as a time duration. Because as we move here to the 5th stage, it's reunion. And so reunion from the timeline duration does say that you come back together after settling these demands of life. But the book and other articles about this stage that we've read kind of signify that this is the empty nest stage, that you've managed life for 18 years or more, 22, let's say, and your kids are all moved out, that you've settled all the demands and now you move back to this reunion. Now, when I read that, I think to myself, that's a bleak picture. Well, I have to wait like 20 years
To feel connected again?
Like we have to manage all this stuff and not have the closeness or the passion and just have the commitment. And that's where I wanted to bring back in the triangle of love, because from that perspective, you would be sacrificing the passion and the closeness for the sake of getting through life's demands, which means you'd be operating on commitment only, which we know from, again, the triangle of love theory is really a relationship based on obligation, which that's not how you want to exist. Like, so that's where we feel there's another big difference here. And though I love the stages, if you get rid of the time, I think we could look at rebellion, like when rebellion happens, you could bring in the right tools, be more vulnerable, get more flexible with each other, be more proactive, set up the right agreements, and within, I'm just making this up, a year, go from rebellion to cooperation to reunion, and just go through that hard season as like a 1 or 2 year period in which now you're reconnected and you're managing life's demands, but doing it from a place with the closeness and the commitment. And though you're going to be limited on time, find how you can bring the passion back in. And it might not be from a physical attraction, purely physical attraction place, but being able to find the purpose and the fulfillment and the vitality towards the life that you're creating, remembering your vision together, reestablishing the values, the core values that drive your behaviors towards this bigger vision, and that being the kind of reunion experience you can have in a much shorter period of time.
I am fired up by what you're saying, and I'm loving it so much because I wholeheartedly agree that that reunion stage can occur so much earlier. That, yes, the newborn stage and those early couple years, it is such an adjustment. And you absolutely are more limited on time and energy for each other. But it doesn't mean that the relationship has to take a total backseat. And in fact, that is what is the demise for marriages who part ways when they're in the empty nest stage, because they're thinking later will work on us. And yes, it might be later in terms of you doing long vacations together and getting all your time back together. Sure, that's going to be exciting when we're there. And I think ahead of that for us. But that's why we love the love account principle, where sure, we're not getting long weekends alone together all the time. We're not even getting date nights every week. You know, we don't have that support around us to do that every single week. But we make deposits into each other's love account every day. We ask each other meaningful questions to connect. We are doing things to show each other, like, I am so glad you're my partner. And it makes all the difference to do those little things. So if you want to work on that, that's also why our 30-day couples challenge is absolutely incredible. If that's something you want to do, because couples around the world do that. So you can go to mycoupleschallenge.com. Also, if you are in Arizona, near Arizona, in the United States at all, come to our in-person couples workshop, which is happening
Yeah.
at the end of May. We've got a few seats left. The URL for that is thecouplesworkshop.com. And really, couples come to that at every stage of relationship, before marriage, early marriage, into the decades. We always have couples raise their hand to see who's the longest. And we always have couples married into their 30 years together, 40 years and beyond. So go to thecouplesworkshop.com and join us in person for that. Worst case, if you're not anywhere near us, then absolutely do the 30-day couples challenge.
And I would say couples that come to the workshop have been in the passion stage, been in the realization, and might be right in the realization, coming to the workshop looking for the communication and conflict resolution tools to almost avoid at the rebellion stage, have that at least be quicker, move into cooperation with the skills and tools, and from an emotional standpoint, be able to leave feeling like you can be in the reuniting stage here. So how do you like
Coming
that?
back together, connected, understanding each other.
Do it in 6 hours.
That's our workshop.
Yeah. So let's get into the 6th stage here. And this is where I also see a difference in time. So from the structured 7-stage perspective, and again from a timeline perspective, they would say you move into explosion stage.
Uh-oh.
Which I feel can happen
At any
much
point.
earlier. Yeah, much earlier at any time. And this is experiencing big life challenges and changes. But again, they do segment this like, well, if you had kids, their kids are moved on, and like now you're facing either transitions from, let's say, work or
Retirement.
retiring, or having to be in this middle generation where you're maybe taking care of your parents as well as, still in the life of your older kids. And then there's like this explosion, like this, planning your life again. But again, I think that this can happen much earlier.
You can explode at any point, at any age, any year together.
And if I put this together, passion, realization, I think this combination of rebellion, cooperation, reunion, and explosion, this to us is the positive trajectory with the needed course corrections. So if you're in a marriage where the communication is open, you're learning these skills, you're proactive, assertive, you got the agreements in place, you're repairing, then you're going to go through these shorter seasons of maybe there's a little rebellion, there's coming back to cooperation, there's a reunion, and then that's good, and then there's going to be an explosion of sorts. And then it's like maybe you need to come back to realigning your cooperation, kind of resetting your connection and closeness, which is the reunion, and then you get a few more years, like you get into like peace and things are settled, and then probably something else will happen.
It's such a good point that it can happen multiple times in a sense, that these aren't just linear, like you said, and you only go through them once. Absolutely, you can go through different ones of these at different points because there's life cycles and there's different stages that we go through together.
If you want to come back, feel free. Let me add the 7th stage here, and this is called completion. Now, I wanted to add that Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist, had done a study, and then I heard this on one of his podcasts, that they studied the happiness of people. And certainly we know from data that couples that are in a healthy marriage are happier than people that are not married. Still the case, even if some people out there think that's not. And really, like, life is challenging. Would you rather go through life with a partner like that's got your back, or would you want to face all this on your own? I mean, to me, that's pretty simple. But also, he said that as people get older, they're happier. Not necessarily because, like, oh, in your 20s you had like all this fun and exploration and newness and all that. It's actually more that you've gone through enough life to realize you didn't die. Like, you made it through. Like, things weren't as dramatic as you thought. And you get to this recognition that it's a different perspective. That you know that whatever challenges, or you could say from this perspective, whatever explosions you're going to be facing, you're going to make it through. Like, you're a stronger person. You've developed your character. your values and your vision are pretty set, and together you know what you're in this life for, and you recognize that conflicts and explosions, to use this term, can ultimately be used to further what you're here for. And so it's more of a being at peace.
Wisdom as well.
Oh, that's it. It's really a wisdom.
Yeah.
And so that's what he found as an organizational psychologist. So to finalize this, the completion stage, I think, adds to a full acceptance of your partner for who they are, the differences they have, whatever shortcomings. You fully accept that. You love them. You come back together. You have this wisdom together. And in that sense, you allow for some more ease and playfulness to be a natural part of your now life together.
I love that. And the more we talk about this, the more I'm convinced that these stages truly can occur not only multiple times, but much earlier on than the way they initially put these out. Like you said, is more so a lifespan thing over your years and decades of growing older. Because I'm thinking about couples even that we're recently working with. And I can think of couples who in their 30s, 40s, reach this stage of they worked through, the early stages, they reach explosions, they work through it, and they're in a sense, completion. Like you said, accepting each other, there's more ease. But we also see couples who in the same age group stay stuck in rebellion. It's like they didn't even transcend that stage. They're still fighting for freedom versus cooperation versus we're a couple. No, I'm an individual. I should do what I want. It's like, dude, you're 45. I'm just playing off of age, right? This can occur at any point, but you've got to check in right now. Are you together transcending these stages where there can be more tension, there can be more conflict? Are you staying stuck? Are you staying stubborn? Are you not being flexible and realizing we need to evolve, we need to adapt, we need to gain wisdom together? So I hope that as you hear these stages, yes, you can think about like the life stages you're in, whether you have newborns or you have teenagers or you're empty nesters, you're at retirement, because we have listeners across that span. But separate from that, really just think about how you're showing up in the relationship. And based on the circumstances that you're facing and what stage you're in, are you really working together to get better, to stay united no matter what you face? Because that's really the difference. It's like we talk to couples all day, every day, you guys, and they're in all stages. We all face hard stuff, sick kids, illness, money challenges, job loss. An array of things. But those circumstances do not have to overtake your partnership, have you turn against each other. If you broaden your perspective, you implement the skills and tools to really work through it and grow your bond, strengthen your bond.
And so to bring this to a close, I just want to speak to the more traditional meaning of completion. Because as the articles I read about this too, they kind of skipped over this. People don't like to be, let's say, morbid. But we just did a podcast or was it a post about, it was a post on Till Death Do Us Part.
Yeah.
So if you took that seriously, then that means you had the commitment for the lifetime for this marriage and that you were in it until you died. And so that is, in a sense, what this completion stage actually is too, that you take this through to death or till one of you does die. And for the majority of people, thankfully and gratefully, that will be towards the end of a human's lifespan. And we know for some people that happens much earlier than thought, anticipated, hoped for. And we know that's a really sad thing to work through. But I think a part of the completion stage is knowing and having that perspective that we don't live forever, and not to be a sad, depressing, morbid thing, but to know that that is a stage of relationship that it's not going to be forever, and one of you is going to pass away, and maybe the realization that you don't know when that will be for either of you can actually be something that brings you more of the passion and the enthusiasm to really not just live impulsively, obviously, but to really inside of repair and rebuild and agreements and communication to then have the grace, to have the acceptance, right, of the differences, and to not make such a big deal out of the small ones, or to be constantly criticizing your partner or bringing up upsets or
need to do better,
withdrawing from your partner and like pushing against them, which is more of like I think a male perspective that
Avoidance
we've seen lately, and not following through on what you said and not verbalizing what you need and just energetically pushing against them in the rebellion stage, right? But bringing that all together to have this recognition of what life is and what it is to be in a relationship for a lifetime, and be able to have that with grace and bring back again that play and ease.
So we hope that this really gives you perspective. Again, zoom out and look at the bigger picture of life at times, and use this as wisdom to realize where you are now. What do you need to do to adapt, to navigate what you're going through? And then also see what is ahead and know that it is not all bliss and happiness and happily ever after. That's the fantasy that we've been sold, but it absolutely can be happiness, fulfillment forever as we navigate challenges and it gets hard and we argue sometimes. You can still absolutely be fulfilled and happy together. They coincide. And so we hope this gives you perspective. Again, if you are anywhere near Arizona, get your butts to the Couples Workshop. We only do this a few times per year. So that URL is thecouplesworkshop.com. You can be in person with us for a day. And if you're not near us, you can't come, then absolutely do the 30-day Couples Challenge, so that you can stay strong, you can grow closer together, and you can navigate whatever season you're in feeling loved, connected, united. So that URL is mycoupleschallenge.com. But with that, if you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can hear past and future episodes. It also really helps us if you write a review for our show, and it always helps if you give us 5 stars. We are so grateful that you're here, and we will talk to you on the next episode.